Greetings from Tokyo. My name is Daisuke Beppu, and I hope you are all doing very well today. Continuing on with my discussion of the films that have been released by the Criterion collection, I'd like to take this opportunity to make a few comments, if I may, about the Criterion collection release of a very special film. The Lady Vanishes. Spine number 3 in the Criterion collection is The Lady Vanishes. This is a film released in 1938. It is a British film, and it is a film that is directed by a gentleman whose name is Alfred Hitchcock. The plot of the film is rather intriguing. It's about a young British woman who is traveling in Europe, and she meets an old British lady while she's staying in this inn in this fictional country in Europe called Bandrika. And it so happens that the two of them strike up a friendship, this young lady and this old woman, and they are on the same train headed back to Britain. And along the way, the old lady disappears while they're on the train. So then there is this mystery as to what happened to this old lady. Did something mischievous and malicious happen to her? Or maybe she didn't even exist at all. She was perhaps just a figment of this young woman's imagination. Or perhaps there's something more complicated and sinister afoot. It's quite a splendid mystery and a thrilling action film from the great director, Mr. Alfred Hitchcock. And that film is The Lady Vanishes. The Criterion collection released this on a DVD some time back, but then they re-released it on this very wonderful Blu-ray presentation. So along with the film on this Blu-ray, you have an audio commentary from film historian Bruce Eder. You also have excerpts from François Truffaut's legendary 1962 audio interview with director Hitchcock. There's also a video essay called Mystery Train about Hitchcock and The Lady Vanishes by Hitchcock scholar Leonard Leff. There is also a stills gallery and behind-the-scenes photos. There is also an essay, or a set of essays by Jeffrey O'Brien and Charles Barr. And there's also a supplementary film, which is a very, I would say, it's not the greatest film in the world, but it's quite an entertaining romp, which is called Crook's Tour, which is from 1941, excuse me. And the film Crook's Tour features two characters that also appeared previously in the film The Lady Vanishes. So those two characters are Charters and Caldecott, played by Basil Radford and Naughton Wayne, respectively. So Crook's Tour is a supplemental film on this Blu-ray release of The Lady Vanishes. So I'm going to now talk somewhat about the film proper. Now I'm going to try to maintain non-spoiler comments to the extent possible, but again, I will be talking about the film, so even maybe for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll try to be as non-spoilery as possible, but I would encourage you all the same to watch the film maybe before you watch this video, but I will keep it spoiler-free, so don't worry if you haven't seen the film. If you're still here, let us continue with our conversation of The Lady Vanishes. So 1938 was this was a year when Hitchcock was still making films in Britain. And The Lady Vanishes is one of the last films he would have made in Britain before going to the United States and giving it a try over there. So this is a thoroughly British film in the sense that it has characters that are quintessentially British. We have the old lady, whose name is Miss Froy, played by Dame May Whitty. We also have the young woman who is supposed to get married. Her name is Iris Henderson, and she's played by the charming and beautiful Margaret Lockwood. And then we have the two men who are on the train. They are very fond of cricket, and they have a wonderful biting banter between them. That's really quite charming and amusing. So that's Charters and Caldecott. The two that I mentioned were also in the film Crook's Tour. Okay. And there's also a wonderful sort of an eccentric musician type named Gilbert, who's played by Michael Redgrave. So those are the core British characters of the film, and they occupy the scope and the space of the narrative as the film progresses. And what a film it is! It is quite a thriller. It is a mystery. It is there's a little bit of a whodunit element. There is also a little bit of an espionage element to it. The fictional country is called Bandrika in the film, but this is obviously the Balkans and Eastern Europe. So there is intrigue, and since this is 1938, of course, tensions are very high. Germany has yet to invade Poland, right? That will come in the following year, but still we have rising tensions with Hitler's Germany, and also we have this film that's set in the context of British passengers traveling through Eastern Europe. So there is, of course, that undercurrent of the tensions that would eventually lead to World War II. But this is not a heavy thriller by any means. On the contrary, it is very light. It is very champagne frothy, if you know what I mean. It is a film that I think is very thrilling and very suspenseful, but there's espionage that develops, and it turns into layer upon layer upon layer of complexity, narrative complexity, which I find very engaging. It's very akin to a mystery plot. I'm reminded, for example, of the fine mysteries of, say, Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie herself was the mystery writer who wrote The Murder on the Orient Express, a crime set aboard a famous train, a passenger train. So here we also have a train in The Lady Vanishes, and we have intrigue that is set aboard this train, namely the disappearance of this old woman, Miss Froy. What happened to her? Did she really even exist? What is the situation with the young woman who's trying to find her? So that is the crux of the mystery, and oh boy, what a fun ride it is. Now, I would say that Alfred Hitchcock as a director is known, obviously, for his thriller suspense films, but he is also known, quite rightly, as being a technical master, a cinema genius, one of the true pioneers, shall we say, of early to mid 20th century cinema, and in particular American cinema. So when he moved to the United States and made movies there. So he made films of great consequence. I would say that, with all due respect, The Lady Vanishes is an entertainment of the highest caliber, top-notch fun. It is quite, as I said, champagne frothy. It's like drinking sparkling wine, and it is a fun romp, and its mission is to entertain, and it does so and then some. But I would also say that it is probably a film that I think does not have many of the, let's say, apart from the technical mastery involved with setting the film on the train set and the backgrounds and maintaining this level of tension and suspense as the film progresses. I would say, with all due respect, there probably is not that much in terms of technical camera trick wizardry at play here. We would see more things like that in his later films. We see glimpses of it, I think, in this film. You know, we see interesting uses of dissolves and fades. We also see interesting uses of sweeping camera movements, albeit using models of, let's say, village landscapes. So they are obviously models, so it's not necessarily a sweeping camera move of a later film like Psycho, for instance, you know, the beginning camera shot in Psycho, you know, going across Phoenix. But there are glimpses of the genius to come, so to speak. And I think, however, that the technical aspects aside, I think first and foremost for me, this is a top level A+ film from start to finish, and by the simple fact that it is so darn entertaining. And it is incredibly entertaining. I am so thrilled whenever I see this. I get a kick out of seeing this because I just love how the mystery fits in and how each character plays a certain part, whether it's innocent or otherwise. And it's just such a rich tableau of suspicious characters and shaky alibis and shady backgrounds and the like, and red herrings and whodunit kind of theme. And therefore, The Lady Vanishes is a supreme success, in my opinion. It is also a very funny film. It is a film that has the tough job, I think, of trying to balance different tones. You know, there are tones that suggest danger, imminent danger. There are some scenes of violence, actually, maybe somewhat tame by today's standards, but still there are scenes of chilling scenes, really, if you think about it. There are certain situations of things that are done to other people that, when you think about it, are quite frightening. But those moments are always played not necessarily for horror or fright, but more so for action and intrigue and espionage. So there is no sense of horrifying the viewer, but rather there is a sense of thrilling the viewer, engaging the viewer, and wanting to, by the end of the film, as the credits roll, put a smile on the viewer's face. And it certainly does so for me when I sit there and watch the film, and then by the end it progresses through, and it reaches a certain crescendo and a climax, and it's so exhilarating. And by the end, I feel a little bit out of breath because it just takes me from one place to the other, and it does so with such skill and such verve that I think I'm so much in love with this film. And I was just going to say also that it does a very fine balancing act between its various tones, and it does have various tones. You know, it has a certain tone of comedy. There's a comedic element. There's also a kind of a romance, and there's also the thriller, and there's also the mystery, and there's also the kind of spy espionage film, and all set within this very tight claustrophobic setting that is this moving train. So the film has a bit of a balancing act or juggling act that it has to take care of as the film progresses. And the film's tone can change like that, almost instantly. And the film does not shy away from the concept of death and the immediacy of death and the finality of death. And there are some moments that, with respect to death, lead to quite poignant and even tragic consequences for certain characters. So I would say that this film is just a bucketful of varying and potentially conflicting tones, but it's a credit to the charming screen presence of all the cast, and to the swiftness of the editing and the compelling nature of the narrative plot, all brought together by the masterful direction of Alfred Hitchcock. It's just a wonderful package, and it's just wonderful to watch this film, and it goes from thrill to comedy to romance, back to thrill, back to suspense, and then comedy and romance, and then all over again. And it does so with such dexterity that you can't help but sit back and marvel at its effervescent genius. So that is my quick discussion of The Lady Vanishes. How did you like it? Do you have any questions or comments? If so, please feel free to leave me a question or comment in the comments section down below on this YouTube video page. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your time in watching. I really appreciate it. And please, won't you join me in exploring the rest of the Criterion collection, one spine number title at a time. So now we have discussed spine number 3, so by my count, the next film is going to be spine number 4, which is Federico Fellini's Amarcord. Until then, my friends, I hope you are all doing well, and please have a wonderful, happy, healthy, and safe rest of your day and week. Cheers.